This is the CSV to JSON challenge. It is a transform, so we are going from CSV to JSON. Actually, it's CSV-like in this example. We'll get into that in a second. But a lot of really cool features here. It's like an advanced version of array manipulation because we're going to use a lot of those same tools to get this done. So the task is take the provided data where commas separate fields and pipes separate rows, like this example here. The pipes are rows and the commas are fields. Normally with CSV, this pipe would be a return, right? The first row of data, the first row in the data set is the field labels, okay? Again, CSV, but not quite. And we're going to transform it into an array of objects that looks like this. So here's the array, here's the object, and we're going to have 5 of them when we're done. So data is all on one line, separated by these pipes and commas. Over here, it's just outputting cleanly. We can see it, and we can get started. So hitting this really fast, we're going to start with a function. That way it becomes a utility. So CSV to JS. Okay, I'm going to make it JS because we can always make it JSON after. Makes it a little bit more flexible right here. And then we're going to just return that data so that we can see if things are working. Okay, so right here we have this wrapped up, and over here, CSV to JS, we should get the exact same thing because we haven't changed anything. So nice and easy. From here, we start to build out the tools that we need. So first, this is a string and we need it to be an array of arrays so that we can get in on this. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to split on the pipes, and then we're going to split on the commas, okay? And we can do that by creating an array. So start array equals data.split, again, on that pipe to start, which gets us rows of data. And then from there, we are going to map over each row of data and split that as well. So row.split on the commas. So if we take a look, we should see a good starting place right there. Name, age, town. It's we would call this a tuple or a tuple, depending on where you're from and who you hear it from. But the data is in a set order. Name here, age, and town. Okay? The next thing is to grab that first array, because we know that that first array, that first tuple, is our field names. Okay? So let's go get that. That's the first line, just like this. And that's going to be on start array, and it's going to be number 0. Okay? Because they start at 0, so that gets us that. The last thing we need before we start here is a place to put it all. So let's go new array equals an array, not an object, an array like this, which means that now if I take this and copy it down, we should get an empty array because we haven't put anything in there yet, but we will. Okay. So that leads to the question, how to do this? Well, we obviously need to loop over things, okay? There are a few ways to do this. Let's do it the ugliest way to start. So here's let I equals 0. And this part isn't ugly, but you'll see what is ugly in a bit. I is less than the start array. So we're going to go over the entire array dot length, just like this. And then we're going to finish by incrementing that each and every time, okay? So we have that. We want to make sure that we don't touch this first line. So let's go if I is not equal to 0, then we do something. The first thing we want to do is grab that, that current line, whatever we're operating on. It's going to be on the start array, and it's going to be at position I, okay? From here, we can build out our new line. And again, this is where it gets a bit ugly. So we have name, we have age, and we have town, okay? We can just get these right in here very fast. So current line of 0, add a comma afterwards, copy, paste, paste, change some of these numbers so that this is 1, this is 2, and everything is looking pretty okay. Okay. We will return to this in a bit, so if you're freaking out, stay with me. We are just going to push that onto new array right now. Push, spell it right, just like this, new line. And if we do that, we should get an array of 5 items, 5 objects with name, age, town, name, age, town, name, age, town, name, age, town, all the way down to Isaac, name, age, town. Okay? Now, are there things wrong with this solution? Oh yeah. Does it work? Yeah. Okay. So let's go and get rid of the things that are not so great about this. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to comment it out. And we are going to move down here. Okay. First thing I want to cover is this return. Right now, we have to pass through this return every single time. We have to go into it. But what we really want to do is just skip it if it's that first time, right? If it's the first time, we don't care about any of this. It's got to pass through all of this code to exit. We can do that a little bit faster by changing this to an equal sign and this to a continue, and then getting rid of this last one. And what we're doing here is we are exiting early, right? So inside of a function, we might have a test right near the top, just like this, where we test if something is true or false. And if it is, we just return. Boom, problem solved. We don't need to execute anything else. On the consecutive runs, we absolutely do, but quick and easy, okay? The second thing we want to do is get rid of this, because this isn't helping us at all. We need a way to generate those keys from first line, okay? Easiest way is just another loop. So we go in here, spell it right, for, and of course, grab that. Now, inside of here, we're going to use the letter J. It's going to be equal to 0. J is going to be less than the first line. If I could type first line, there it is, dot length. And each time we are going to increment that. Little glitch in my browser there. I had to fix it because the loop was trying to run away from me, but here we are, okay? So inside of here, we take that new line. It's an object, right? So new line, we're going to attach something to it. It's going to be the first line, first key, whatever that is. So in this case, it's J, right? So 0 should be right on there. We don't see anything because we haven't done anything with it. Let's go and finish it. So current line, also of J, and now we should get exactly what we had before. 5 items, starting with John, ending with Isaac. Again, all is right in the world. And now we have a good solution. Okay, we're cleaning it up, making it right. We can outdate, make sure that the indenting is right here. And we can pass whatever data we want in here, and assuming that the first line is our keys and everything else is just values, now we have this really good place to build off of. Now, we aren't done. We can do more. Let's go and copy this again, comment it out, move down, paste it, okay? We're going to do even more to this. So the first thing is this map. I mentioned it before, hopefully, that we are iterating on this array, this full array, twice. We're doing it here, and we're doing it here. If this full array was thousands of lines, right, for only 5, it's probably not that big of a deal, but for thousands of lines, we would be doubling up our effort. We'd have to go through the whole thing this time, and then down here, we'd have to go through the whole thing again. The start array, okay? We don't want to be doing that. So my advice is grab this split, cut it to the clipboard, get rid of map, and down here we want to attach it to the first line and to the current line. And what that does is it ensures that now we are only splitting a piece, which should be much faster. Down here we're only splitting a piece. We aren't doing all that work up front and then having to do all that work again, okay? We're only splitting the current lines here. We're only splitting the first lines here. So everything should only get touched once in each case, okay? We can go further. So right here, this continue statement, I'm going to copy this again just to make sure that I have record of it. So this continue statement isn't actually needed because what we can do is we can go here and change this to shift. And shift will remove it from start array and attach it to first line, okay? So you'll see over here we only have 4 items because we still have this continue, but if I get rid of this line, now we're back to, there it is, 5, starting with John, ending with Isaac all the time, okay? Moving on, let's go and make it even better. I'm going to copy this one more time. not just one more time. Let's keep going. So this for loop, right? We set up an empty array here and we have this for loop. But what if I just went and attached it directly? And we absolutely can. We can go start array.map, so we can switch to a map. This one will be row. And we are going to do something to each and every row. We're actually going to take all of this, move it right up here, change a few things. So it's no longer start array because we have access to row, right? We're pulling in that piece. And down here, we don't push anymore, we return. But as soon as I do that and I uncomment this, we should get everything just working. 5 items, John, Isaac at the bottom, all is right, okay? We can go further with the inside loop here. So instead of this, we can do a for each, okay? Let's start with a for each, and we're gonna for each off of first line, okay? So again, I'm gonna comment this out for a second. Right here, first line dot for each. And we need 2 pieces of information here. We need the index, and we also need whatever that first item is, okay? So we can get both of those. It's going to be, what am I calling this? I'm calling it field. That makes sense. Field and index, okay? 105 changes, sounds like a lot. Let's keep going. Right here. This line moves right up again. We haven't changed anything here. And we can change some things inside of here. So new line field and current line index, okay? If I uncomment this, I should get exactly what I was expecting, which is 5, starting with John, going through seeing Roberta, Rishi, and Isaac, okay? Cleaning this up some, we can get a little bit further. We have this, this map here. Make some space so that we can see it. Maybe not that much. But we set up new array and then we return new array. Well, we don't need to do 2 steps to get that done. We can just return directly, moving this up like this, and everything still just works. My preview is getting a little skittish on the scroll. There it is. So all the way down, we have it. We can go even further, okay? Let's do that now. Drop it down, get another one. So what if instead of for each, we switch to a reducer? And not reducer, but the reduce method, okay? Again, just like up above where we were setting up an empty array, we are setting up an empty object here. We don't really need that. We can get that done quite easily. So over here, instead of this, we're going to go first line, dot reduce. And reduce is very popular. I've talked about it in the past, but we have an accumulator, we have the current item, and we also have index because there is an index in here. We may as well use that. And down here, we set up that empty object, okay? So instead of attaching it to new line and doing stuff, we have it right here as a starter. This is our accumulator, so this is where we start. And now we set it up. So we get the accumulator, The key is going to be whatever the current thing is because we're operating on first line. And we set that equal to current line index, okay? And if we do all that, we should get errors. Undefined is not, because I have not returned it. Sorry, we always return the accumulator. And that should bring us back to 5 items, John to Isaac, okay? So getting rid of this. Right now we have a very solid solution. In fact, we can clean this up. This return is no longer needed here. We can just return directly like this and get rid of this line because it's redundant. And now we have this really solid example where everything is just working. It's nice and clean. We unfortunately can't combine these very well because we have to loop through all the rows and then we have to loop through all the keys, okay? So there's that. So very clean solution. We have the map, we have the reduce. But I was curious when I was doing this, how could we do it other ways? And I found a couple. I found a couple very interesting. In fact, the last one we're going to talk about is what I feel like is just super flexible. But for now, let's copy this again, okay? Paste it down, and what we're going to do is we're going to change some things in here. So we're going to use something called object from entries instead of this reducer, okay? We're still going to return something, but check this out. So we return object, capital letter O, okay, from entries, and this is going to take something that looks a lot like this. We get an array, and inside of that array we have 2 things. Again, it's a tuple. So based on our stuff, we have that name, and the first one was I don't remember. Let's go with Fred. Okay. So when we return this, from entries is going to take all of this stuff, right? If I had other keys for age and town, it's going to take all of this and create an object with this as the key and this as the value, which is just really cool. So we can get that done. Let's create some space in here. And down in here, we want the current line. And this is where it gets a little bit different. You'll remember up here, we were operating on first line, but now we're doing stuff with current line, okay? So again, inside of there, we have a value and an index because that doesn't change, and our fancy arrow function. And now we return an array. The array is going to be first line index, and the second one is going to be the value. And if we do this, we should get 5 items inside of that array, right? Starting with John and ending with Isaac. And it's a little bit shorter, right? We didn't need the return statement inside of here. So a line shorter, making it a little bit tighter, but some people might not know from entries. So the debate about whether this is cleaner code than the one above it, who knows? Who knows, okay? The final example I want to show you is a generator, okay? Before that, I want to do one small thing though. So you see this pipe? We've been calling this CSV, but again, it is CSV-like, and we don't really want to do that. So really fast, I want to change this to a \n, which is what CSV actually would be. It's going to break the whole lot because it doesn't know how to deal with that. So down here, we can go replace all and change it to a, replace all those pipes with a new line character, okay? That should get us right back to where we need to be. So generators. Generators are one of those really interesting power tools that we just don't get to play with that much in front-end development. But they allow us to do a custom iterator. We can pass pretty much whatever we want in there, and based on the contents of it, it will send something back out, right? So it will allow us to iterate on almost any data we can imagine. And the cool thing is that we don't have to we don't have to build all of that data in one go. Instead, we yield halfway or partway through the code, and it suspends the processing of the rest of that code. It doesn't delete it. It doesn't get rid of it. That code still exists. And so when we call it again, it starts right where that yield is and carries on until it finds another yield. Okay? So here's where it gets interesting. We are going to create a generator to start. Function. All generators start with an asterisk. Okay? And we are going to call this get CSV row. Okay? We're going to pass in all of the data and do something. Now, we need a lot of this, so I'm just going to copy and paste some of it into here. I'm going to change this up a little bit. So instead of this, I'm going to go ahead and do this part. And then right in front of it, I'm going to go first line with a comma, just to be different. That's going to scream because we can't redeclare first line. So let's change this to a let. Get rid of this and change the first part of this to first line. Was that necessary? Absolutely not. But since I'm in the teaching mood, it's a different way of getting to these first two lines. Okay. From here, we need to decide how to do something. We could just copy this map in, and you'll find that it will not work. It won't work because if we put the yield statement inside of here, it's actually inside of this function, and it needs to be inside of this function. So the scopes are wrong there. So we can't use map. Instead, we have to use a for loop. Okay. So we go here and we go for let row of start array. Okay. And we do something. In fact, we do all of this stuff here. So we're just going to copy it and change it. So right here we have object from entries. We could have done anything else so long as we aren't inside of a callback. Object from entries, and right here we need to change this. We no longer have access to a current line, right? Current line was up here. So instead we can just grab all of this row.split, because we do have row, and paste it in. So row.split, and then map over it, and everything else is kind of the same, giving us this. The only other thing we need to do is right out in front of object from entries, we put yield. Okay. Yield is kind of like return. It gives us that pause. Now you'll hear people call it a pause. It's actually I think they refer to it as suspending the process. So it goes into memory, but it doesn't get lost. Okay. Whereas with a return, that's the end of it. The function ends. Nothing comes afterwards. Okay. I could have multiple yields in here, and with every subsequent call, it would go to the next yield, to the next yield, to the next yield. Okay. So I could just keep cycling this as unique numbers or anything else. For now, we're just going to yield whatever this is. Okay. And here's where it gets interesting. So copy this, comment it out, move it down to the bottom, and get rid of everything inside of here. Boom, it's gone. We are just going to return an array with get CSV row, and we're going to pass it all of the data. And if I've done this, we get exactly the same thing. At this point, you're like, well, Dave, why did you go through all this work to talk about generators? Here's why, okay? I'm going to comment this out for a second and create some other examples. We're running a little long on this one, but stay with me. I'm going to create a const, and this one is going to be called convert CSV, like this. It's going to be equal to the data. So get CSV row, like this, and we want all of this good stuff inside of here. Copy it, paste it in here. Okay. Now I can console log that just like this. Convert CSV. Apparently I can't type anymore. Dot next. So There it is, okay? Next is something that we get returned when we call this, this function, okay? It returns an object with this next function on it, this next method, and we can call that, and what it does is it cycles the yield. So it'll go through and it'll say, oh, there's a yield, I need to stop here. And it will return whatever this is, which is only the object. See, we have a value of the first object. And done is false. If done is false, it means there's still other stuff to be seen, okay? So I can copy and paste this really fast. Paste, 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 paste. One more, I think. And what we should get is a whole lot of different things. So way up here, that's the one that I was highlighting. So the next one is, again, John Smith. But then there's saying Roberta, Rishi, and Isaac. And then we finish with done, because there's done true. There's nothing left in the queue. And here's where it gets really interesting, because I can't think of any reason to call next on this, okay? But let's comment this out for a second and go down here and create another for loop, okay? This one's going to be let row of all of this good stuff. I'm just going to copy it, paste it down, boom, okay? And now console log row.name. And it should give us just the names. So right here, we can grab a single column of data. And you might go, yeah, I could do that anyway with a regular function, except if this was a regular function, we would have to return the entire object. This thing that we were doing way up here somewhere, back in our console log, all of this, we would have to return this and then operate on it. But because of this generator, we get a piece at a time, and next gets called automatically for us. So we only have to operate on that piece. Okay, and I think that this is a really flexible solution so that we can get both of these just like this. We can either grab the whole thing if that's what we need right here, or we can grab a single piece and iterate very slowly, or we can get a single column of CSV data. Lots of options. So bringing it home all the way back up, we started with this string, CSV like. We did some very messy code just to get it working. We hard-coded values. Hard-coding values is always a mistake. From there, we cleaned it up. We added another loop, and inside of there, got it working so that we could pass in any kind of data, okay? We also did some performance optimizations so that we weren't iterating over the entire array twice, because that would be some kind of performance hit if it was huge. And as we move down, we get into more and more refinement. So here we started cleaning up some stuff where we shifted this, right? We also pulled out the continue. As we go down further, we started using some higher order functions like map and for each. We even switched it out to use a reducer, and I think that this is a really clean solution. If somebody shows up to an interview and does this one for me, that feels like a really strong candidate to me. And then we explored some options around from entries and generators, which are just amazingly powerful. They're almost too powerful when you think about all that they can do. We passed a string in here, and we were able to iterate on the values of that string individually to get just a piece, okay? So lots and lots of power in there, and lots and lots of options. If you've found another option that you'd like to share, please do that. Send me a comment or let me know what you found. I'm always interested to learn more. Otherwise, I will see you in the next one.